Hi, we're live for another edition of Talk to Us Tuesday. This is our 30-minute chat where you can ask us questions about what's happening in the city. I am your host, Kristen Chernosky, and we're live at the Eagle View Adult Center. I'm excited to be joined today for our last Talk to Us Tuesday with our city manager, Philip Rodriguez. Philip, welcome.
Thank you so much, Kristen. It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
Great. We have 30 minutes that you can leave your questions and comments, and we'll try and get to as many as we can over the next 30 minutes. If we miss your question or you tune in afterwards, please feel free to still leave your question or comment, and we'll try and get back to you as soon as possible. So to get us started, Philip, tell us a little bit about yourself and your role and responsibilities with the city.
Absolutely, I'm happy to do that. Well, so I've been the city manager here since September of 2017, and so just a little over a year. Part of what I do as city manager is that I function much like a chief executive officer in a private company where I actually oversee all of the staff, all of the programs and projects of the city, and then all of the budget of the city as well. And so what that can mean day to day is that I can be involved in something like police action that we maybe have to take. It may be looking at a park that we're actually trying to improve upon. It could be negotiating a new economic development deal, a whole host of things. And then there's some not so glamorous things, right? Of just putting the budget together, making sure that I understand how we're spending our resources and managing those wisely on behalf of our community.
Great. So while we wait for questions to come in, my first question for you, you were recently recognized by BizWest as one of Northern Colorado's 40 under 40, right, citing the cost savings and accomplishments you achieved in your first year. Tell us a little bit about your first year here.
Yeah, thank you for that, and I appreciated the award, and it was great to have support from both staff and council there when I received that, and that was kind of more based on the body of work that I've been involved in over the years. But certainly in the last year, some of the things that we've been able to accomplish was actually probably the most important thing was we've been able to get our budget back in check. And so we had a shortfall when I first got here of just over $4 million. And so we've been able to ratchet that down where our projected shortfall into 2019 is just a little over $400,000. And so we've significantly reduced cost, and we've brought a lot of cost savings to the council over the course of the past year. And so I would really put that as a true highlight. The other thing is we've been able to put a strategic and business plan together for the first time in the city's history. And so those were both initiated by the city council. We did a retreat process where they actually told us how they envision their community going forward. And so we've been able to build our next year's budget based around those plans. And so I think that was a significant win. And then one other thing I'll highlight is we've had a lot of changes in terms of the organization. A lot of the leadership when I first got here is either transitioned into a different role, or in some cases we have some new people in some spots, some very key spots for us. And I think that's been a huge win for us. Across the board, I think we're operating far more efficiently than we even were a year ago. And I think we're being more effective in how we're actually providing services to our residents.
Great, thank you. Again, we're live with Talk to Us Tuesday. We're here with our city manager, Philip Rodriguez. If you have questions about the city or anything that's happening, please leave us a comment and we'll try and get your questions answered. So next question, how has your previous work as a city manager helped you in your first year?
Yeah, so I served almost a decade in Texas cities. In fact, the first city I worked for was the city of San Antonio, which is 1.5 million people. And I worked in the city manager's office there, ranging even to the first city manager position I took in a city of about 3,500 and everything kind of in between. And so that's helped me here in Brighton because I'm able to sometimes get into the weeds a little bit more when I have to, things like our utilities, for example, because in a lot of those cities that I worked in before, I didn't have a lot of professional staff to lean on. However, I do have the experience in even larger cities than Brighton. And I think have a good sense of what it means for us to further professionalize what we do here, and so that experience has been pretty varied, and it's helped me. But I also have to admit that the staff here has been incredibly helpful to help me understand what's happening in the community, what the history is here in Brighton, and so it's really that partnership that I think has been able to that we've been able to capitalize on and leverage on behalf of our community.
So we have a lot of work-related questions coming up, but before we get into those, I know you spend a lot of time at City Hall, but when you're not at City Hall, What do you enjoy doing? What do you do outside?
There is life outside of City Hall. You're right. I have a beautiful wife and 2 daughters that I love spending time with. And my daughter's, my oldest actually, is a college soccer player. And so we often will go see her on the weekends to go play as she's playing soccer various parts of the country. My youngest is incredibly involved in theater, and so we love just going and watching her performances and supporting her. But some of the me time, I guess, is that I'm a huge college basketball fan. I love the Kansas Jayhawks, my alma mater. You were ranked #1 this week, by the way, which I'm very proud of. But so I love just watching sports. I'm a big Broncos, Avs, Nuggets, Rockies fan. Whatever the season is, my wife and I love going to those games. And then last but not least, I'm really a big avid music lover. And so we spend a lot of time actually going to concerts. And in fact, being so close now to Red Rocks is something that we really value. And it's just great to be back home. For those that don't know, I kind of grew up in the area. And so it's great to come back home and just be a part of everything that is to enjoy about Colorado.
And what did you miss the most when you were in Texas? What did you miss about Colorado?
I don't even know where to start. Certainly the mountains, there was, you get used to growing up here, everything west in the Denver area is the mountains, and not having that, I was kind of directionally challenged once I left here. But really just the chance to go play in the mountains, wintertime, summertime, whenever. That's probably the thing I miss the most, yeah.
Great. So we often hear from residents that they want the city to remain, small town, the small town charm, but they want the amenities of a bigger city.
Sure.
How does the city balance that so we can offer both to residents?
Yeah, no, it's a great point, and it's one of the things that drew me and my family here to Brighton was that we loved that small town feel. We love the historic nature of the city. So I think there's several things we can do. One is that we can't forget our roots, and so we spend a lot of time and energy on our agricultural history here and making sure that we prioritize our ag land. In fact, in next year's budget, we've put a little over $1.5 million, dollars into acquisition for new property, open space. The other things too is we need to keep engaging our community because we go through long processes when we have a new business that wants to come into the community to make sure that we vet that in the public. And so my hope is that the public that is engaged will get even more engaged, come out, visit with us in our public hearings, help us know how they want to see their community develop. And then we really prioritize, at least, certainly since I've been here, we're making sure we prioritize good quality growth. And so any businesses we're sitting down with today, we're asking the questions, how do you help our community better us? What value are you adding to our community? Not just, what kind of sales tax are you going to gain here in the community? How do we instead benefit from having you in the community? And so that's going to be our ongoing kind of mantra going forward, is make sure those businesses are good partners of ours.
So speaking of growth in businesses, how does the city attract those quality businesses that we want to come to town? What's the process?
Sure. A lot of that actually is through two of our affiliated groups. One is the Brighton Economic Development Corporation. Michael Martinez is the director there, does a really good job of going out, him and his staff go out and actually kind of pound the pavement and help us find some of those businesses. They're also there to be responsive. Anytime a new company or a new business is looking about the Denver area and where they want to relocate, we try to make sure that Brighton's at the table and that we really put forward our best foot. The other one is the Brighton Urban Renewal Authority. I'm really pleased with how Ryan Johnson, the director there, is moving us forward in that way as well. And so we try to make sure that we're not just waiting and being passive when new businesses are wanting to come in, but that we're being proactive about the types of businesses that we want to have coming here in Brighton.
Great. Again, we're live with Talk to Us Tuesday. We have a little bit of time left. We're here with our city manager, so if you have any questions, feel free to leave them, and we will get those answered. I want to shift gears just a little. In October, you launched the 75-day plan.
Absolutely.
Tell us about that plan and why was that created?
Sure, it's a great question. It was really based on a couple things. One was that I wanted to have better clarity. As the new city manager, this was really my first budget year to be involved in the budget creation in 2018, going into 2019. So I wanted to make sure that I had good clarity about what was happening with our finances, and then also to make sure that we had accountability and transparency for our public. And that also includes our council, quite frankly. We wanted to make sure that as they're being asked to make really difficult decisions on behalf of the community, that we have the right information in front of them and that they can feel confident in that information and make the decisions that they know they need to make on behalf of everyone here in Brighton. The 75-day work plan was set up to address many of the things I'd heard about when I first got here in terms of utilities customers, for example, being frustrated sometimes by the length or the shortness of our billing cycles. Sometimes them not knowing exactly how much water they were even being used versus how much they were being billed. And so a lot of our process is about making sure that they have that clarity. The 75-day work plan, above all else, is giving us a chance to prioritize the people in our community to make sure that we're serving them well. And I knew we had to do it in an urgent manner. And so that's where the 75-day work plan was really birthed.
So with that, we have our first question that's come in, and this is from Paula.
Okay.
Paula says, I'm interested in knowing about the status of the investigation into the water billing issues, which allowed for bills to be more than 30-day period, placing usage into higher billing tiers. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the layers, or one of the bullet points in our 75-day work plan is actually to put together an audit selection committee that would consist of the community, some community members, some staff members, and then some council members. And I'm pleased to report they just met last week. After several weeks of them reviewing different auditors and auditing firms going forward, they've selected now their best selection, and so that's going to be brought to the City Council December 18th as a recommendation for us to contract with. Now that process is going to take us several months, as any audit, especially the size organization that we have, it's going to take a number of months, and so that is going to require some patience, certainly from all of us. But I am happy to report that we're taking these steps to make sure that that we can accomplish that. And so the 75-day work plan, very quickly too, was actually built with the idea that we could radically change how we're doing our billing processes, and we've got some really good improvements coming there as well. We're actually 90% done with the plan right now, which I think is huge for us, and so that's going to lead us to a whole host of benefits in the long run.
Yeah, so that was my next question is how much of the plan is left to be completed, and are there certain items that you can talk about that we're still working on? Sure,
yeah, so just about 10% is left, even though we have about 25% of the time left towards the end of the year. So we're way ahead of schedule, which is fantastic. I definitely can't take all the credit for that. That's been something that staff across departments has been a big participant in. In fact, I do kind of want to highlight our newest director, a couple of our newest directors, Mike Woodruff, our Director of Infrastructure. He's taken on quite a few of these different tasks, done a tremendous job. Ryan Johnston is our Director of Public and Urban Policy. He's also taken on a lot of these tasks. And then we've just hired and added a new Director of Finance, Ron Lay. And so he just started with us yesterday. He was also part of this plan, quite honestly, because I wanted to make sure that we went out and found a new Director of Finance who could really help us manage a lot of our financial issues going forward, and so he's now on day 2 and so far doing a wonderful job.
So I have another question that's come in, and this is from Kara. Kara asks if you can please discuss what Brighton is doing for affordable housing for seniors.
Great, that's a wonderful question. We actually this evening, believe it or not, December 11th, have on our agenda phase 2 of the Libretto housing project. And that project, phase 1 is already out there. It's behind City Hall, kind of closer to our core part of our city. Phase 2 is actually coming to the council for discussion this evening. And one of the things that we have built into our code that I'm very excited, and it predated me by quite a bit, but that I'm excited exists there, is for us to actually partner with these types of affordable housing projects to lessen the burden for them to come into the community. So that's things like us looking at waiving fees, making sure that we expedite the process. So I just want to give a shout out, I guess, to the Brighton Housing Authority that's doing a tremendous job with our housing, affordable housing across our community. Joseph Espinosa is the director there. He'll be joining us this evening to talk about their next project. So that is one of the things I think Brighton really does well. Can we do more? No question. We can do a lot more. But I am pleased that even this evening we're going to actually embark on the next phase of Libretto out there. So
last week, City Council adopted the 2019 budget. Talk to me a little bit about some of the highlights. What's in there?
Absolutely. So this is something that usually takes us about 9 months to develop. So we start in the spring with staff, and we introduce it to the council sometime in the summer, and then by this point in the year we adopt the budget, and then we launch into the new budget, January 1. The newest budget that council just passed is about $125 million. That's across 15 different funds, including to fund things like our police department, our lodging tax, our utilities, so all those different areas. Some of the things that we did this year that I'm very proud of is we did some process modifications. And what I mean by that is typically what we were doing in years past was we would come forward with about 75% or so of the budget in the annual budget process, and then we would leave another 25, and in some cases even 50% more on the table for us to consider in the spring. So it was almost like two different budget processes, and I sensed that was causing some confusion, particularly for our departments and our council. So we moved it all into 1 year now, where we have one budget process. We'll have some amendments throughout the year, but we want to make sure that if we know we're going to be spending dollars in the next year, that we list that in our budget document, and that we make sure that council's aware of that and the public's aware of that as well. So so we've made some huge strides there as well. I'm happy to talk about some budget highlights too if we have time. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
A few different things that we're engaging in the 2019 budget is that we've actually reduced, and I mentioned this a moment ago, we've significantly reduced our use of fund balance. It's actually the lowest that it's been in the last 3 years. And really what that means is we're just not dipping into our savings account as much as we used to. And we're actually budgeting now with our recurring revenues and our recurring expenditures to make sure that we're living within our means, which is just something that's really important to us. We've added a couple new sworn police officers for this next year that will be largely at the schools, the school district here, and then our charter schools. We also have a new community service officer, so this is to help us keep up with a lot of our code complaints and a lot of the concerns we have about that. We've also increased our spending on our streets and our roadways by over 44% from even this current year. So 44% increase next year in spending, all while keeping, again, our fund balance is very succinct and even reducing costs in a whole host of areas. So that's one of the things, no matter what size city I've ever been in, something like addressing a pothole is uniform to every city I've ever been in. And so when we're able to put another 44% funding, for example, into that next year, I think we've done some good things. And again, we're not done. I think that we're just scratching the surface on good stuff for our community. But those are a few of the budget highlights coming up.
Definitely great things that residents will see.
Absolutely.
So we have another question that's come in, and this is from Kathy. Kathy asked if you can talk about the city's decision to put in a methadone clinic.
Sure. Well, that's a good question. I can say this: the city didn't make the decision to put any kind of a clinic in. Typically, especially here in the United States, we try to let private property owners do with their property what is legal. And so, what's lawful is for us to have a medical clinic of this nature downtown. It wasn't an ideal location, really, from our vantage point, but certainly they worked within the system, the codes that existed. And we're able to do that. But I also want to say a few things that have been positive there is the council has been able to go and actually tour the site, been able to get a firsthand view of what's going to actually happen over there from day to day, and we're getting more and more comfortable with the controls that they have in place. And particularly, let me say this too: we're in a context today here in Colorado and really across the country where opioid addiction is we're losing people left and right, and I think almost everyone I speak to today has someone in their family or knows someone who's been impacted by this serious epidemic. And so this clinic believes that they have some possible solutions for that. Certainly not to fix or eradicate all the issues in the area, but certainly treat as many people as they can with this addiction, and hopefully we'll get folks back really kind of conducting their own day-to-day lives, and maybe we can see some reduction in these impacts. And I think that's the positive that could come of this. But certainly we're going to be very closely working with them to make sure that there's no negative impacts downtown.
Great, thank you. Again, if you have questions for our city manager, please feel free to leave them. We'll try and get to as many as we can. If we miss you while we're live, please still leave your question. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. We have a comment that's come in from Debbie. Debbie says some people have expressed concern about the new park on 160th and Main. Concerns it's being near a drug center and high traffic, and that was prime real estate. So I think that's referring to the downtown plaza.
Sure.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so much of that project predated me, but what I do know about what we've been able to accomplish in that is, and if people of course have probably driven by and seen some of the demolition happening, I think the word park is a bit of a misnomer. It's not going to be a typical park that we're used to, where it's going to have a playground or kind of a neighborhood park. It's going to be much more, we're calling it this, a downtown plaza. It's going to be a gathering space for the community. It's going to actually be a place where we're hopeful that food trucks and various amenities in the community can come gather, and it really just be kind of a destination point for our downtown. And as far as the value of the property, there's no question that that's a prime part of our downtown. But I also want to say that the owners of those buildings over the years, well before the city got involved, had some real difficulty keeping tenants in there, and we realized some of that had to do with parking access, as well as just kind of the business mix that was downtown. A lot of folks in the community probably remember when there was a Woolworths down there and JCPenney's, but downtowns in America, especially historic downtowns like ours, have really shifted to more boutique and more kind of that destination retail where if people are wanting to go downtown and shop, it's because it's the quality of what they're finding down there and kind of the experience. And so the plaza gives us a chance to really enhance the experience downtown, and hopefully I think will be a benefit for our community.
And do you have a timeline of when residents will actually be able to go there and enjoy it?
Yeah, no, actually in 2019 we're going to be very far down the road in terms of construction. As you've probably seen with the demolition, they're just about done. And so, yeah, in the not too distant future, we'll all be able to go down there and kind of celebrate our historic downtown together.
Great. And I just want to mention, Kathy said thank you for addressing my question. I appreciate hearing your take on the city's dedication to working with the clinic to make things as safe as possible.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So as 2018 is nearing an end, and we've done a lot of planning.
It's hard to believe, right?
I know, hard to believe, a couple of weeks, right? We've done a lot of planning for 2019. So what are you most excited about?
Wow, that's a great question. So I think we've spent 2018 really building the internal infrastructure to make our city successful going forward. And that I talked about that with the strategic plan and the business plan, our new organizational structure, new hires in very key positions. Now we get to actually put into action all the things that we've been dreaming about this year and all the things that we've been even trying to correct, quite honestly. We get to now put that into action in 2019. And so that's exciting to me because I don't want us to just be theorizing how we help our community. I want to make sure that we put into action those things that are really going to benefit each and every one of us. I live in Brighton myself, my family's here. It's important to me and it's important to us as staff to make sure that this is a community that people want to set down roots in, that they want to live, they want to work, they want to play, they have an opportunity to shop and dine and do all those things. And so we're going to get to put in a lot of action plans this next year, and I'm incredibly excited for that. So it's going to keep us busy, but I think we've proven through this 75-day work plan, we've raised the bar for how staff can work through issues, and we can develop plans and we can implement those plans. So now we've got our work cut out for us in 2019, but I'm awful excited for that.
All right, and we're nearing the end, but if you do have any questions you're dying to get them in as soon as possible, and we'll try and get them answered. So as we come to a close, you mentioned residents, and we're always trying to plan for our residents, but what are the best way that they can get involved and be a part of the decision-making process?
That's a great question, and I love that question because this is about us building community together. And so I want to really encourage our residents to speak up and speak out on the issues as they arise. Be involved in the council making, policy making process. We meet every Tuesday evening, either in a study session or in a regular session where the council actually votes on different agenda items. And so I want to encourage folks to come out to those meetings. But we have a whole host of boards and commissions, and oftentimes we're actually, just a few people short of being able to make those really thrive. And so I know they can go to our website, which is brightonco.gov, and search for boards and commissions, and they'll find a list of vacancies there at any given time. But then certainly, last but not least, is reach out to us. Give us, via Facebook, via any of our social media campaigns, certainly our emails and phone calls. Come visit us at City Hall. Just engage us as often as possible, because sometimes we really do only hear from just a handful of people, and they can shift how we do our policy making. And so the more people that are at the table having those conversations with us, the more hands that we have involved in that, the better decisions we're making on everyone's behalf. And it really helps us to make sure we're building the Brighton that we want to build.
Great. So as we close, any last thoughts or anything that we've missed that you want to make sure people know?
No, it's just such an honor to be of service here in Brighton, and it's been, like you mentioned a moment ago, I think I've been here about 16 months, and in that time period we've been incredibly busy. We've had a lot of change and transition, but I'm awful excited about where we're going in 2019. And so just wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, whatever your tradition is. We just are so appreciative of you tuning in today. And thanks so much for helping us make a great community together.
Great. Thank you so much, Philip. Thanks for spending the time. And if you're joining us live, thank you for being with us this last half hour. If you should happen to catch us later, feel free to leave your questions or email us anytime, and we'll try and answer your questions as quickly as possible. And thanks again for joining us for another edition of Talk to Us Tuesday. Have a great day.